never too late to become a horse. So I go by TheSewingPony on Twitter and Instagram. Please follow me. The algorithm hates me. It sets me up to fail. It is very hard to get Twitter followers. Again, TheSewingPony on Twitter and Instagram. I've been making fursuits for around 5, 6 years. I kind of started when I was like 15-ish, and I like to host this panel to hopefully inspire you or to just get you to tell about a friend and get them to start making either their own fursuits or becoming a fursuit maker, because you are the future of fursuit making. We need more furries, more fursuits, so I can stop making fursuits and pay you to make me a fursuit. Because I am tired of making my own fursuits. Please start making fursuits.
No, just kidding.
So, periodically during this panel, I will be answering questions if you have any. I will periodically stop in between each of my talking points to ask if anybody has questions about that talking point. So, I'm vaccinated, I have all my vaccines. If I'm going to take my mask off, I can look here, and when I talk, my glasses fog up and I can't look at you. So, apologies in advance. But, lost my train of thought. So just hold your questions until I'm finished with that talking point, please, and I will get to it. And your question doesn't necessarily have to be about that talking point if you immediately think of it at that moment. So during this panel, I'll mostly be talking about, different bases, how to get started, where I began as a maker, and just ways to avoid burnout and just getting discouraged. And just talk about in general, expensive isn't always better, cheap isn't better, and just anything in relation to fursuit making. I want to try and cover it all, just give like an introductory course to then get you to go on, do more in-depth research, and then make your own fursuit. So, I meant to bring more heads than this, but my car was very full, and I did not get to bring all the ones that I wanted. So, you win some, you lose some. So, this is the first fursuit head I ever made when I was 15. This fursuit is busted beyond all belief, and I can't wait to set it on fire one day. This thing is not safe to wear. I made it out of EVA foam. It is closed cell foam. Please do not make your fursuit out of EVA foam. There is no breathability. You will burn up. You could potentially have a heat stroke, especially in Florida. Please do not do EVA foam. And then this is my most recent head as I'm the panel host. I'm joking. This is my most recent head. I refurbished her this year. So this is kind of an update of my work, but it's just, I technically made this head 3 years after making this head. If I can go from this to this in 3 years, you can do anything. Literally, the possibility with fursuits is endless. And it's just, whenever I made this head, I knew it was bad. And I immediately told myself, I can do better than this. And then so I got better, and then I made more, and then I made more, and now I have this one.
I tell you that first head was a good start. It's beautiful.
So, what made me personally really want to make fursuits is, 15-year-old animal-loving me discovers this. I was like, I think I was looking online for just references to draw, because at the time I was really into drawing. And I saw this like weird purple giraffe animal costume. It was a Rafa, if any of you know who he is. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I need it. So then there goes 15-year-old me down the rabbit hole of fursuits. I was already into cosplay, and I ran a Skyward Sword Link fan account. So I was already in that kind of cosplay world, stuff like that. So I really easily transitioned over to furries, and I started following more like fursuit creators and just furries in general. And around, late 15s when I wanted a fursuit. And I begged my granddad, please buy me a fursuit. Me not knowing at the time that I think I wanted, I was like, Granddad, can you please buy me this $600 fursuit? And then looking back on that now, I was like, that was so expensive. For just 15-year-old me to ask for that, I was ungrateful. But I really liked it. I loved animals, and I was like, I want that to be me. And I kind of was looked up, how to make fursuits, tutorials online, stuff like that. And I figured out what I needed to make the head. I bought a base online, I bought the materials, and I just watched tutorials online and followed along the best of my ability. And that is how I ended up with this. A big pro tip from me is do not buy everything you need all at once. I made that mistake and I bought all the materials that I needed. Apologies to the people standing in the back. I asked for a bigger panel room. Last year I had a lot of
There's
people.
seats available up here, come on in.
And there are a couple seats available up here if you want to
up front.
sit down.
Unless you don't want to be with the uncool kids in the front, it's okay.
But you do not have to buy everything up front because it's really expensive up front. The clippers that I use to shave the fur, they can range from $250 to $60. I have a pro tip, buy the Andis Pet Pro clippers. They're purple. That thing was $60 and it cuts fur like butter. But just slowly build up your tool set and your skill set. Start off, make a few tails, sell them for a little bit of profit. Then take that profit and invest in more tools. Because making a head is a big leap. I wished I started out, maybe I made a tail, and then I made maybe feet paws, and then I sold it, got a little bit extra cash, to then buy better materials, and then make it again once I already had that experience. And then making test patterns out of just cheap cotton batting from Joann's, $3 a yard. If you're unsure about something, just buy that cheap fur, take the time to sew it up, to just triple check your pattern. Because many times have I jumped into something with very expensive materials, and I make it, and I'm like, crap. I could have done this a lot better if I just made a test pattern. But whenever you take that profit and invest it little by little, not only does it hurt less financially, but you feel like you're unlocking potential on the way. And before you know it, you'll have all the tools and skills, the big makers do. And it's been a very long morning. Sometimes I'll pause and think. I need some Jeopardy music up in here.
That's not till later.
Especially nowadays, because fur is more expensive. I remember when I first started buying fur, it was maybe $22, $23 a yard. Now it's $26, $27, $28, and the amber that I use is $33 a yard now. And another thing is, if there's a fur that you like, buy more of it, because dye lots change, and just sometimes it might be discontinued. It's always handy to just have at least an extra half a yard at bare minimum on hand, especially if you're making the fursuit for yourself in case you want to change anything or any of that jazz. Because if you're already buying the fur, just spend that, you're already paying for shipping, spend that extra $15 to have a little bit of extra fur in case you accidentally mess up or any of that jazz. If anybody have any questions about materials, building your skill set, anything like that, going once, going twice.
Where do you buy your fur from?
So I almost exclusively buy my fur from How Fabrics. I will also occasionally go to fursuit supplies. I hate Big Z. They have some good colors. I've worked with them before, but I've noticed that their furs, some of their furs shave beautifully. It is like butter. But some of them, they're difficult to shave for no reason. And then when I shave them down, they're really thin and just gross looking, and they're not smooth. How Fabrics, I like them because now when I buy from them, I'm knowing that my money is going directly towards, a company that really caters towards furries, and then they're always releasing new colors. Big Z, they occasionally release new colors, but not as much as I would like. And Fursuit Supplies is where I got this really beautiful, amber color. So I do like some fur that they have, but I will always recommend How Fabrics. They also have Minky, so you can just buy it all in one go instead of buying this here or buying that there. It's just, I love How Fabrics. I've never had a problem with them. And then also, I don't know if they still make furs, but it's called Mendel's. Never buy anything from Mendel's. Their fur is ratty. Their quality is crappy. It's terrible. And then Shannon, I used to use their white and black fur, but it's really gone down in quality. It's sometimes it was perfect to work with, and then sometimes it was just terrible to shave. How Fabrics and Fursuit Supplies, I cannot recommend them enough.
I miss mine.
Does anybody, you?
I'm kind of still starting off. I was wondering, how do you decide what types of foam to use for a head?
So I will get to bases. Actually, my next talking point is bases. So I'll answer your question next. I saw someone else raise their hand over there. Yes.
How about when you buy the fur? Where's the best place to store it if you don't have a lot of space in your house to store fur?
I have stolen my grandmother's linen closet and taken out all of our blankets. So, and most people are not as lucky as me to steal their linen closet from their grandmother. But I work out of a 10 by 11 room. I sleep in there, my office is in there, and I share it with 2 parrots. So I am the master of saving space. I usually will either roll my fur up, and I fold mine too, but I have a steamer, so I know I can steam it to maybe get those potential folded wrinkles out if it happens. But just rolling it up and just maybe tucking it on a top shelf or under a bed, just really anywhere you can find, if you can fit it there, put it there. Because fur can get very, very bulky. I probably have over 80 yards of fur between my bedroom and the linen closet. I overbuy fur because I'm well, what if I need extra? Well, what if I want to do something with this fur again at some point? Don't be like me. Don't buy 80 yards of fur. But just wherever you can fit it. If you have to really fold it up and cram it in there. If it's your personal suit, do whatever. Don't do that with customers' fursuits. I try to, if it's for a client, I take very good care of it. If it's mine, I'll ball it up and throw it wherever. Because I have no respect for my fursuits. So what was your question again about the bases?
I've heard that there's different types of foams and there's different feels and textures. How do you know exactly which one to use?
So at the end of the day, my biggest thing is basically your personal preference. This fursuit is EVA foam. Never use that. It's terrible. Henny is made off of a Sky Pro base, which uses expanding foam. I'm not the biggest fan of foam bases, but I do prefer expanding foam. But then there are also people out there that use upholstery foam to make bases. And I've worked off of those twice. They're not particularly my favorite, but at the end of the day, it's personal preference. It helps that if you're at a convention, at a dealer's den, if someone is selling bases, just ask if you're I'm thinking about making my own fursuit, I'm just trying to get an idea of what base I want, how it feels, how it looks like. Most of the time, they will let you just hold them and look at them, because if you really like it, it might compel you to buy it, and it'll be a good sale for them. But there's foam base, the expanding foam, EVA foam, the upholstery foam, and then there's also 3D printed bases. So I get my 3D printed bases from a company called Fuzzbutt Fursuits, and they do 100%, not sponsored, I just really like Gizmo and Z. They're 100% customizable, and I also like 3D printed bases because you can grow with them. You know, the fursuit can grow with you, vice versa. Because with foam bases, if you want to refurb, you have to pull that fur off. And with that will come some foam if you put a lot of glue in one spot. And with 3D printed bases, the glue sticks, but if you want to refurbish it, it comes off and does not damage the base. So I like 3D printed bases also because, let's say I have a salmon fursuit. Who the heck has a I'm also not artistically talented, I cannot make bases. I rely on other artists to make bases so I can make fursuits. And I was like, who the heck makes salmon fursuit bases? No one. So I went to Fuzzbud Fursuits and I was like, can you make me a salmon? Gizmo was like, yeah, give us your money. And Z was like, oh my gosh, this lady is crazy. Because I am. So I do really like 3D printed bases, specifically for new makers, because it's about the same price as a standing foam base. And then at any point, if you're like, I feel confident that I can do better, you can rip it off and the base is exactly like new. And then there's resin bases too. I've worked with resin twice. It was the DVC Skull Dogs. I like the DVC Skull Dogs, but I'm not the biggest fan of resin. I would rather just have a 3D printed base because it's lighter. Resin also, don't be like me either on this. The Fuzzbud Fursuit bases, I can stand on them. I weigh like 190 pounds, I can stand on them and they don't break. I have drop kicked my personal heads, not my customers' heads. I've like drop kicked like these 3D printed bases. I have treated them horribly. And it is very hard to get them to break. And I think I had one small hairline fracture on one happen one time, and I just got some E6000, ran it across that, and you would never guess that there was a small break there. But I have heard stories about like resin bases completely fracturing if TSA does not respect them, or just sometimes accidents happen. You know, there's been points where I've dropped my fursuit, and if there is a 3D printed one, it makes that loud clang, and everybody just goes, oh, and I'm like, it's okay, it's 3D printed. But at the end of the day, you know, just look on the dealer's den. Feel them, touch them if they'll let you. Don't just grab a fursuit maker's base unless they give you permission. And just, I don't like resin, but a lot of people love resin bases. I love 3D print, and some people hate 3D printed bases. So it really depends on what you like the best at the end of the day. Since I kind of tied that question into head bases, does anybody have any questions about head bases, any of that jazz?
Again, I was actually looking into standing foam bases, and I saw that like you have to model the whole thing out of clay. Like, is there like a certain type of clay or a certain type of foam that has to be used to make sure it's compatible with anything?
So I don't make my own bases, but I know that there are tutorials online. I think most people use like Monster Maker mold making clay, but I've made like silicone molds for like I cosplay a lot, so I've done that stuff before to like cast things, and just commission Fuzzbud Fursuits if you want a custom base, because the clay is like expensive. And then silicone right now, to properly make a thick enough cast, you will probably spend like 150, 200 plus in a silicone. And then silicone bases, you have a lifetime. After so many casts, you do have to remake them. If you're really dedicated, go for it. But I would just recommend paying Fuzzbud Fursuits to make you a custom base. But I also think there are people now on Etsy that they will 3D print you a positive mold, a custom base mold, and then you would cast it in silicone yourself and do the mold from there. That's still expensive and it's still time consuming, but if you really want that truly customizable base that is 100% you, there's tutorials online to sculpt your own clay and cast it. You can get like 3D printed positives and cast it so you have the negative, and there's a lot of ways to go about it. And then just online is also your best friend. Reaching out to people that you've seen make their own, casts and stuff, reach out to them, ask maybe for their tips and tricks. It's like, I've noticed that most fursuit makers are usually very friendly when it comes to helping other people, answer questions. And if they're not, just move on to the next one until someone will give you their little 2 cents. And I think.
Okay. And you admitted you're not an artist. It may be a little harder to answer this question, but like one thing I struggle with in doing 3D design and stuff of fursuit is like proportion and sizing, and how big you make the head compared to the body. And do you have any tips on that, or anything that you found that works?
So what Fuzzbutts does, and I'm going off of what they do, they kind of scale the head based off of your own head measurement. Because I have a client that had like a 7.5-inch head. Tiny person. So they were just short. They were like 5'2", I think. And the Fuzzbutts made sure that their head, when I got their head, I was like, is this for a child? The person was like, no, I'm just short. Because I'm 6 foot, and I have like my head is like 9.5. So like my bases are bigger. But I've had one client that had like an 11-inch head, and it was bigger. But it's like, so I don't know what basis they go off the scale, but I do know that they try and base it off of the size of your body, because I have broad shoulders. So I can wear a bigger head a little bit easier. Because like sometimes when I wear Henny's a very tiny head. I look sometimes kind of goofy wearing her because I'm 6 foot, broad shoulders, and I have this little tiny horse head on. But it also depends on what you're going to make your fursuit. If you're going to be like this giant padded. Oh yes, thank you. I was like, why are they giving me a thumbs up? Who is that? And it also depends on like your fursuit, because there's a fursuit maker called B&C, and they make these like beautiful like big caribous, these beautiful padded suits. And I've gotten to try on one of their heads, and their heads are pretty big, but their body suits are also like heavily padded. So if they've made this little teeny tiny head on this padded body, even if the wearer might be a smaller person, they need that bigger head to kind of flow with their fursuit. Because it's like, I used to wear a plantigrade fursuit with Henny, so her small head worked. But now that I'm transitioning to like a half padded half suit, she might look kind of goofy, and everybody's gonna have to deal with my fursuit looking weird. But sorry if that didn't quite answer your question.
No,
because
actually you mentioned the item insert, which is shoulder, basing off shoulders too.
Yeah, because I have one client who, he's a bigger dude, but he had he had more narrow shoulders. So I kind of like tried to make his head look more slim, but it still had to be big to encompass his head. So sometimes you hit the angle a little bit. But I was going to say something that I forgot. And it wasn't important. Does anybody else have any questions about head bases? Yes.
Now with like heads, I know eventually they get old, especially like foam, resin, and 3D printed. When would be like the best time for like each of the heads to like get them to the point where they're like retiring and then make a new suit for it?
Whenever you feel like it. Because I have seen some fursuits that are 14 years old and they look brand new. It helps if you take care of them. Now the 3D printed bases and resin bases, as long as you take care of them, they don't really have an expiration date. You just peel the fur off and refurbish them. The only thing that really ever needs to be, I guess, refurbished after a certain point of time is just the fur. But if you really, I'll get to this later too, I'm going to briefly mention it here. Little green machine. It's like $100-something on Amazon. It is your best friend to make sure that your fursuits stay looking good. And it's like, I will give Henny just a damp wash with Folex and a rag and then suck it all up with the green machine, and it keeps her looking new. Because she is a 3-year-old suit now, and she looks brand new. And it's like, it also doesn't hurt to occasionally, if you maybe change your design, you can give them a little facelift without having to remove everything. Because with Henny, her face, oh shit. Sorry, Megaplex, we're spilling water on your floor. Her face is about, 2.5, 3 years old. But the back of the head is like brand new this year. Because I wanted to change how it fit, and I wanted to change a couple things, and it's like, her back of the head was rough. It needed that update. So it's like you also don't necessarily have to update the whole thing. You can kind of maybe update a little bit here, update a little bit there, because like, she used to have different ears, and those ears were raggedy. Those ears are probably 5 years old. And they were good, but it was just like not my present day quality, so I just took them off and changed them. But it's, whenever you want to retire your fursuit, as long as you take care of it, it will last a lifetime. You know, foam bases, the foam will kind of deteriorate over time, but really only if you're not, wearing like a balaclava or something. Just make sure, like I have really oily hair, I have to wear a balaclava with my fursuit, or she would have been disintegrated into ash by now. Just wear a balaclava, clean it. If you sweat a lot, just make sure you wash it after convention. Fursuit spray, that little bit of alcohol, just spray it in there whenever you're done wearing it, and it will last as long as you want it to. Does anybody else have any more questions about heads? I'll go with you first. You raised your hand first.
I'd like to have a question. On that head, what pile of fur do you use to get it like that smooth looking?
So I made Henny with what's called bunny shag. And I think bunny shag is an inch. Most fur I think is like 1.5 inches. Bunny shag is like 1 inch. And I get Andis Pet Pro clippers and I just shave it down. And I do know that Fursuit Supplies sells what's called super short, where it's already like pre-shaved fur. It comes in very limited colors, only like white, gray, and black. They're slowly working on making more, but that fursuit back there is blinking, and I just noticed. And it like threw me off for a second. I was like, why is it blinking at me? But just get a good, I will say, back to the buying materials thing. If you're going to splurge on something, get a good pair of shaving clippers. Because this fur, I did not have a good pair of clippers. There's a hole there, not my problem. This fursuit, I used a really bad pair of clippers and it shows. I shaved this one with my newer clippers and it looks smooth. Just, again, I also say it's different, could be the same brand of fur, different furs shave different. Computer, put that card, I'm not you can turn off. It's just, I think that bunny shaves better than luxury shag, but it's a personal preference. But you just get a good pair of clippers and you can get it that short and that smooth.
Probably more of a design question for depending on the student. Like, what do you do with the back of his head on a 3D printed basis? Are you putting foam back there, or are you?
So I've seen some people put foam back there. See, again, people are leaving my panel room because there's not enough seats. I told Megaplex to give me a bigger room. I had way more people last year.
There's like a whole row here if anyone wants to sit.
Okay, brief rant over. So I've seen some people put foam on the back of their heads. I personally don't do that because I think it's just going to make your fursuit heavier, harder to wash. Also, the back of your head is where it's usually going to get grossest the quickest. And I want easy access to it so that can be washed the easiest. But I have like an end head, and I just kind of put the base up there and just patterned it with duct tape around it. And I made my own little back of head pattern. Everybody does their back of heads different. And I wish I brought my 3D printed base down here, but I was lazy and didn't have space. But there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But me personally, complete personal preference, I hate fursuits that have foam padding on the back of the head. I just think it makes them look bulkier, and sometimes it can make them look like a little bulbous because you have that sometimes like inch more of like foam back there. And again, it's another thing to get gross. Fur is so much easier to clean than foam. I have washed things with upholstery foam in them. It takes like days to dry. And I'm always like wringing it out, and I don't like upholstery foam. Upholstery foam is not the bot. Does anybody else have any questions about basic before I move on to the next topic? Going once, going twice. Next topic. So, oh,
Can I just say something real quick? Those like spamming foam ones, I've used one before, and one of the problems I ran into, if you don't spray the inside with glue, it falls apart. Or like when someone sweats in it, like the foam starts disintegrating.
oh yeah.
Yeah, you gotta spray with glue.
Yeah, so I wear balaclava and then the inside of mine is slightly lined, so my skin doesn't touch like the exposed foam. But if you are not wearing a balaclava with your fursuit, and you are just letting your raw skin touch that, foam is not comfortable. If you're letting your skin touch foam, you are superhuman to deal with that kind of discomfort. So please wear a balaclava. Your fursuit will smell nicer, it will look nicer, it will feel nicer. You will thank me. And if you are one of these people that are wearing your fursuit out of balaclava, I want to have a word with you.
I hope everything's okay over there.
I think Alkali might be having a panel over there, and he's a hoot, but very loud.
While we're paused, I was the person that bought the paws from you, and I have to go volunteer for stuff. Do you have those with you? No? Okay. I'll message you, I guess.
I feel so bad.
No, you're good. As long as you like brought them down here, because I'll be here all weekend.
They're up in my hotel room.
Okay.
I am a terrible fursuit maker. I forgot so much stuff up in my hotel room. I specifically told them, you can pick your feet paws up with a panel. I will bring them. Guess what? I didn't bring them. I feel bad now. So, different kinds of materials. This kind of circles back to, don't buy everything all at once. Expensive isn't necessarily better when it comes to fursuits, but cheap isn't better either. Making a fursuit on a reasonable budget can be a really tricky thing to finagle. My biggest tip is if you have a Joann's near you, they always got 50% off coupons. Do not shop at a craft store unless you have at bare minimum a 40% off coupon. Joann's, they always got them 50% off coupons. Do not go in there and overpay when you can buy it with a coupon. And then I've also noticed that you would be surprised that sometimes the Walmart craft section has things that I buy at Joann's and they're half the price. I get sewing needles from Walmart. They're like Central brand, the same I get at Joann's. Sewing needles, seam rippers, and then I like these disappearing ink pens. They're dual-sided. One end is blue, one end is purple. The purple end is air soluble, and then the blue end is water soluble. Please use water soluble markers on your fursuits. Sharpie will bleed, and you will embarrass yourself, especially for a white fursuit. I made the fatal mistake of using a Sharpie on my fursuit's white nose the first time I made it. That did not end well. Do not make the same mistake as me. And they're also, Sharpies are kind of expensive. These water soluble pens are I think $2.50, $3 at Walmart, and they last forever. And then for darker fur colors, Walmart also has these chalk pens. They're made by a company called Bistro or something. I don't know, BI something. And again, they're water soluble. They don't bleed, and if they do bleed, they're not going. Can I help you, sir? And if they do bleed, just run a little bit of water over it, and it'll be like it was never there. I would say, and then again, scissors. I use these I have a bigger pair of scissors for larger cutting, and I have a pair of little micro Singer scissors. Joann's wants $10 each for those scissors. In this economy, I don't think so. I buy them with a 50% off coupon, $5. And also, this is me being shameless. they are really stingy sometimes and only let you use like 1 coupon per order. You can reuse those 50% off coupons most of the time. I'll buy what I want with the 50% off coupon. I will walk out of the store, go put it in my van, walk back inside, grab the other item I wanted, and use the coupon again. If I can save $1, I will. Fursuits add up and get expensive really fast. There are some seats up front if y'all want to sit down. But it's like, listen, I picked the most expensive hobby. The least I can do is figure out every single feasible way I can save money. Okay, do not shop at Joann's unless you're using a coupon. You will thank me. Please use a coupon. Coupons are your best friend. And then, yeah, coupons. And then sometimes my Joann has a really poor selection of Mickey. But, you know, look online, you know, look for when they have those like 30% off, 40, 50% off of this fabric, you know. Also, usually around Black Friday and 4th of July, Joann's will have like big sales on their green upholstery foam. I ain't paying no $12 for a yard of 1/2-inch green upholstery foam. I go there when they have their sale, and it's like 40, 50% off. And then sometimes they'll have their 20% coupons that you can stack with sale items. Ooh, I love it when they do that. I will not buy upholstery foam unless it is on sale or if I have a 50% off coupon. Because an inch yard of green upholstery foam, it's like $18. I ain't made of money, I'm a furry, I'm perpetually broke. Just, again, it doesn't have to be expensive, you know. If you have money and you don't want to be, you know, stingy like me, then just buy it flat out, you know, good for you, but save that money. You know, buy more so you can get more fursuits, you know. Be like me, you make one fursuit, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I can make my own fursuits for half the price. And then you get a crippling fursuit addiction, and you can't stop making fursuits because you have too many ideas. And then you get all these ideas, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't listen to Henny, and I paid full price for all these items, and now I can't make these other fursuits I want. And then you'll be like, I should have listened to Henny during her terrible, terrible panel for Megaplex gave her a very small room. Does anybody have any questions about like materials or just any of that stuff in general? Going once, going twice. You.
Do you have any online sources for material, or do you usually do all in store?
So again, Joann's, they have, you can order online and have it shipped to you. Periodically, they will have like those free shipping coupons. Save that $3 in shipping. And then a lot of the things that I do buy, I can get off of Amazon. I pass Joann's a lot, so I do go there, but you know, a lot of these items you can get online and have it shipped to your doorstep. You know, I'm pretty sure that all the things that I have bought, if I was too lazy to go to the store, I have bought them online. So basically everything that I buy also applies to online if you want to purchase it and have it shipped to you. Does that answer your question?
Do you have any like other sources outside of that? Like, are there any websites that specialize in certain materials like?
Oh, shoot! This is me being bad. I have it written down somewhere. If you follow me on my social media, I will make a tweet about it because this is a great resource. I eat through zippers. And I saw the zippers that I buy at Joann's are like $6 a pop. And then the thread that I buy is like $5. Well, I saw someone recently share a website where this stuff is like, the thread is like $2.50, the zippers are less than $2.50, and it's the exact same brand that I use. I have it written down somewhere. Again, follow my social media, I'll make a post about it. And it was like, it was a really good, you know, location to buy thread, you know, buy that, those zippers that I use. Ooh, and then another tip about something that you shouldn't cheap out on. Do not cheap out on your thread. Your thread is the most important thing in your fursuit. That is what is holding your fursuit together. I use something called a Gutterman thread, and I think the brand that I use is like Mara 100 something. I love this. It's like M-A-R-A Gutterman. I cannot get enough of this thread. It comes in so many colors, and it's synthetic thread. Don't use cotton thread in your fursuit. Cotton is a natural fiber. Like if you use fursuit spray, or if you're one of those people that put bleach on your fursuit, or just anything, you know, cotton degrades. It's a natural fiber, it will degrade, and you will have problems with it in the future. And then I commissioned one suit once, and they used like plastic thread, and it ripped through the fur, and my neck popped off during a convention. I like polyester thread, and I think Gutterman Mara is advertised as upholstery thread, but it's not really. I would just, in general, also avoid like the heavy-duty upholstery thread. It's really thick, it will be bulky, and then if I hold my head by like the neck, the mane, and it's like if you use upholstery thread, you know, and if you pull it the wrong way, it will rip the fur, and then you will have a problem during a convention or whatever. I really like Gutterman. I like the Gutterman Mara brand, but just really any kind of Gutterman polyester synthetic thread is your best friend. And usually synthetic colors become more vibrant. They're more vibrant. You know, most of the time on a lot of my heads, I don't even see the thread because I try to match the thread to the fur.
One question, please. I do not know. What is your social media? Who do people look for?
Oh, yes. Well, circle back. Please follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My social media is TheSewingPony. The algorithm hates me. It is set up to make me fail. Please follow me. Please. I am trying so hard to get past the algorithm, and it just keeps on just raining on my parade. And you don't have to like my posts. Just exist. Does anybody else have any questions about tutorials? Yes.
I'm sorry for asking for too many questions.
Oh no, I love answering questions. It's okay.
I'm trying to I was wondering, do you keep a binder of small swatches of fur as reference materials or anything?
Yes, I keep a swatch of every fur that I've ever bought. And even if it's a different dye lot, I will keep it and I'll write the date on it, just so I can kind of keep a track of how consistent the dye lot might be. And then you can never have enough fur swatches. Just making swatches, fabric swatches in general, I always keep a little bit in case I don't necessarily want to go grab the full yard. I'll just grab that, compare, and then throw it back in my mess of a swatch drawer. You should organize your swatches by color. Don't be like me. If I want something, I'll be digging through this giant set of swatch. Don't be me. Don't make the same mistake as me. Does anybody else have any questions about materials and just?
You said you were going to tweet out the thread you use in the zippers?
I'm going to tweet out the website, yes, that has those good prices. I'm going to see, I have it saved somewhere. Where that is a problem for later me to find. But actually, before I move on from talking about different furs and stuff, actually, I'm trying to remember if that's one of my future talking points. Okay, well, I'll cover this now. So, a good way to, whenever you're designing your fursuit, take in mind of the fur length, because there are, the inch, bunny shag fur, then you have your regular luxury shag. The tail on the top of this is your regular luxury shag. It's the almost standard on all fursuits. Then you have, again, the short bunny shag. It really helps to play with lengths and textures. It can really, really add a lot of depth to your fursuit. Because if your fursuit is just one consistent, length, then it can kind of get a bit blurry. I think I might have put something in here. That's where I put that duct tape. Okay. I was looking for that. Well, we could have these, but I guess I didn't. Yet again, I have forgotten something. I am a terrible panel host, forgetting everything important. Just, again, fur textures, because if I used entirely, half-inch luxury shag on this, it would look weird. It wouldn't, especially the zebra tail, it would just look off. And then I have this husky tail where I wanted to be a super fluffy dog, so I used really long 4-inch fur on this tail, and then Henny's mane also uses that just really long 4-inch fur to just kind of help differentiate. And you can also, if you're really talented, not like me, you can use like 1-inch luxury fat, shag. I have a list. I have a very bad list. That was terrible. I'm gonna get canceled. No. If you use like 1-inch luxury shag, because that's the only length your fur comes in. I've seen people where, let's say their fursuit has like hair or a mohawk. Well, they'll then get a strip of the upholstery foam, and they'll make like a mohawk base, and then they'll make the luxury shag kind of go upwards and then like stick out, so it's not flat, but it still pops because it's separated from the rest of the fur, and it's not flat, and it still has character while still all of your fur lengths are the same length. There's so many creative ways to just use fur, and because like this tail would not look the same if I just straight up used 1-inch fur on all of it. It would not look right. There's a reason people shave the faces on their fursuits. If the face in your fursuit was all long, we would look terrifying. So it's just you shave the face of your fursuit. So why not take into consideration of fur length on the rest of your fursuit parts? Because I had a customer who he had a little chibi wing pattern in the back of his bodysuit, and it was very delicate. And I told him, if I make this out of luxury shag, it's not going to look like wings. It's going to look like you have 2 white blobs on your back. So what I talked him into was I shaved down the white fur, and then I sewed them in. So now when you look on the back, they look like cute little chibi wings. But if I left it as the 1-inch shag, then it would have just been a blob. Especially if your design has very small, intricate designs, you will maybe want to get creative and think about how to incorporate, different fur lengths into your design.
I also know how fabric sells certain colors in different lengths. Like the fur that I use is sold out in both lengths, but they sell like really long length and really short length, so you can use it for different purposes.
This is my panel. Thank you very much.
You were drinking water.
No, but again, like sometimes, some colors come in limited lengths, so you do have to get creative with that foam work and whatnot. I'm just lazy, and I won't do it on my personal head because I'm lazy. Okay, before I move on from fursuit building in general, does anybody have just any fursuit making, building, general questions?
So I ended up making my own bodysuit from a partial. And the only pattern I could find was a horrible Walmart Halloween costume pattern. And it worked because I just sized everything down, I cut everything to size for their patterns. And then I put everything together with clips, and then I had to size it down quite a bit from that to get it to actually fit. Are there any good patterns you know about that are better for that, besides doing a full duct tape dummy?
For a digi-suit or planning grade?
Either.
So I love to go on Etsy, and I'll just type in, fursuit pattern, fursuit bodysuit padding. I think there's a couple on Etsy. However, I think both of them are they're made to fit preset sizes. So unless you fit into that category, you would have to modify it a bit. And also, SkyPro Fursuits recently on their Patreon released a very, very good digi-leg pattern. Literally the best digi-leg. I did not offer digi fursuits for the longest time. I hated making them. They were very difficult for me to make. But these are just the legs. so you would have to figure out how to pattern the upper half yourself.
Sure.
But it was a very easy and straightforward pattern to follow. The shape is beautiful, they're very comfortable, they're durable, you know, and I modified them a little bit to my specifics, but I do really like the Sky Pro pattern, the DigiLake pattern that they currently have on their Patreon. I would highly recommend that. But it's just, you need to stop farting. I'm so sorry.
No, stop.
No, Dallas, it's stinky over here. No, but just, I would like to go on Etsy and just type in, you know, fursuit pattern, and I would just browse and just, sometimes looking at patterns can also maybe like give you an idea. And it's just, but I am aware that there are like two like bodysuit patterns. I think one is plantigrade, one is digigrade. But at the end of the day, I really like that Sky Pro one.
Okay.
The only problem with the Sky Pro one is you would need to take it to a printing shop that has like a big ArchiCAD printer. I have an ArchiCAD printer, and not even my printer was big enough for this pattern. So you can't print it out at home, which is the only downside, but it is a wonderful pattern. Anybody else have any like fursuit making related questions?
Can I jump off this one? Have you ever messed with any like software to do patterning or anything like making pattern digitally?
I am not talented like that. I wish I could draw. I cannot. I cannot carve my own bases. I wish I could. It would save me hundreds. So instead I pay people for patterns. I have made some patterns myself, but it's usually just a lot of, I sketch them out and trial and error. I wish I could make patterns online like that. Do you have a question?
Yes. It's about the foot paws. I was wondering, like the ones that I have right now are currently like a bit large. Do you know exactly how to make it so that they kind of fit more against a shoe without kind of making it feel like it's just a shoe with spur over it?
I don't make feet paws with shoes in them. Is it just like, is there like a gap between like the shoe and like?
What is this? So you have the EVA foam on the bottom, and the shoe on the side, and then the foam itself is kind of glued in around it. Like it's kind of a thick wall on it. So as long as there's like a way to kind of make it easier to work with.
Can't really think of anything because like sometimes I have to like see it and like feel it to like get an idea. And I really only make sock paws. I like sock paws. I don't like working with people's shoes because the 3 times that I let clients send me their shoes for fursuits, their shoes smelled. So I stopped offering that. And I am terrified to start doing it again. Because I do not want stinky customer feet in my bedroom. If you're going to send shoes to a customer, a fursuit maker, give them new shoes. Yes.
Like, probably just add to your what is it called? Terms of service. Just, hey, if you want to have shoes in your suit, wash them. Or get new ones. Please, I'm begging you.
People don't read that. I do not think I have had a single customer read my terms of service. I could put in there, for all I care, you owe me $1 million at the completion of your fursuit, and they would just, yep, I agree to your terms of service, and just oblivious. That's the only problem at the end of the day. I send them the link, I tell them to read it. 30 seconds later, I read your terms of service. Can you send me the down payment? Sure. It's not my fault you didn't read my terms of service. But it usually bites me in the butt because then they send me their stinky shoes. Any more questions? Going once? Yes.
I wasn't here at the beginning, so you might have covered this, but do you have any resources on, in terms of like actual labor hands-on, like beginning to end, like doing your home design and then the sewing stuff? I know you said to learn that, but in terms of like the hands-on getting stuff.
So like in the tutorial?
Yeah.
There's a lot of video resources online. And then I forget their name on Etsy, but there is a person that makes patterns. I think they're called like Marigua Cosplay or something.
Something like that.
They make fursuit patterns, and then they also have YouTube videos where they're a little bit sped up, so I would slow them down, where they basically just show you how to make them. But I do recall that there are a couple just random videos on YouTube where it's just, can you close that door? Okay. Where, thank you!
I got it.
Where they kind of basically, sometimes it's like head only, or they make a partial, where they just kind of go through the whole shebang. I do know that there's a fursuit maker by the name of Sparky Can Do. However, their opinions are a bit, there is some stuff surrounding them that I am not fully aware of, so I do know that I have their tutorial. Someone emailed it to me. But that one's a really good one. They want like $75 for it. Do not pay $75 for a first tutorial. Unless you're rich, then do whatever. But I can't afford that. There's a lot of free resources online. There are some people that where you do have to buy their pattern to get access to the tutorial. But I don't really think I've ever seen a pattern like over $15.
Yes. There's also a website, it's been around for a while, it's called Matrix, M-A-T-R-I-C-E. They have its own kind of beginner, but it has a ton of tutorials that are very good for people who have never done anything craft related before. And if you don't want to spend money, they're all free. I highly recommend checking them out and seeing what they have.
The cosplay person you mentioned also sells, I believe, bodysuit patterns now.
Yeah. But Matrice's they have free ones and like premium paid ones. But even their premium paid ones don't really go over like, I think $8 is the most expensive one I've seen from them. But again, I love to browse Etsy, and just, because sometimes a lot of these people, they will put the video tutorial in the description of the listing, and you can click on it and then watch them make it before you buy the pattern and make it yourself. So you can get a visual idea of, can I make this? Is this tutorial in-depth enough for me? It's like the Coof suits?
Yeah.
I have a list. I can't English. They have a wonderful, wonderful pattern. They have a wonderful in-depth video tutorial. I love their paws. Their paws are like a standard in the furry fandom now. They have a great video tutorial and then a great written tutorial too. So it's like, both really help. Does anybody else have any more fursuit making questions before I move on? Okay, moving on to the next topic. So, fursuit making can be really, really stressful. There have been times where I'm making a fursuit and I just sit back and I'm like, I do not want to be a furry. I hate being a furry. Just because I'm making the fursuit and it's burning me out, artist burnout, artist block. It happens with fursuits, It's normal, it happens. Don't try and force yourself through that frustration, but there are ways to prevent frustration. Take a step back. If you're feeling frustrated, just take a step back, stop. Maybe look online, look at other fursuits and what other makers are doing so you can get an idea of how to achieve what you want. Researching when you're feeling frustrated and just setting that fursuit down can significantly help. Don't try and force yourself through something when you're getting frustrated. I've made that mistake before, and I just ended up hating the decision I made. And do not frame failures as failures. You didn't fail. You found a way that didn't work. It is impossible to be an expert on something without knowing what won't work. This fursuit, I made a lot of bad decisions, but I'm happy I made this fursuit. I love this fursuit because I learned so much from it. I learned what to not do. And then I was able to make another fursuit 3 months later, and it looked like a pretty darn good fursuit for my second fursuit. I do not have it. I kind of wish I kept it, but that money was really tempting, so I sold it. But it's like, after I saw that, there was, a short period where I was like, this looks terrible, I do not want to try again. But I was like, I can do it. You know, never tell yourself you can't, because there is no such thing as can't. You know, fursuit making is an art, and like art is like perspective. You know, there are some things on people's fursuits that I don't understand or like, but it makes them happy. Or it's like it's their first time doing it, and they may be aware that it's not the best, but they are going to improve at some point. And it's, again, just do not frame your failures as failures. You cannot fail in fursuit making. There is no possible way to ever fail, because you can always try again. And just, maybe you're lucky and you're one of those really talented people and your first fursuit is amazing. Please share your talent with me if you are one of those people. But it took me a couple of tries before I found my style, my techniques, what I enjoy doing. And you know, it was really stressful for a long time. You know, the past couple of months, I've hated making fursuits. You know, sometimes it happens, but I've found better ways to do things and better ways that work for me, and now I'm like, okay, I now know to not do it this way because it doesn't work out for me. And just because one maker might do something that works really well for them, it might not work for you. Handpaws. I do not like making handpaws. I am terrible at making handpaws. I don't understand what these people are doing where they can just put the beans in the sewing machine and make them come out perfectly round and beautiful. I can't do that. I tried very, very hard to make handpaws. It has never ended well for me. They're good, but I'm like, they could be better. So you can also, you know, maybe, again, I think that there's no way to fail, but if there is something you genuinely do not like making and you've tried and tried again, maybe just pay someone else to make them.
Support small artists.
Support other small fursuit makers. And your customers paying for it anyway. If you don't like making handpaws, don't force yourself to make them. You know, I made the mistake of accepting handpaw commissions whenever people order heads from me. And I would finish the head in like 2 months, and then I can do the handpaws. And I drag my feet. And that's not fair to my customers. You can sit down up here.
I'm good. I know you're picking on me because I'm your friend.
I know him. I'm allowed to bully him. There are seats up here.
Well, I can't stay for long. I got work to do.
Oh, I forgot. You do have work. Why are you here? Oh, Furry, SMH. I lost my train of thought.